The alien fleet, now fragmented and reeling, fought desperately to hold its ground in the face of the relentless human assault. Panic spread like wildfire as alien commanders, once certain of an easy victory, realized their forces were dwindling at an alarming rate. Ships that remained operational were ordered to regroup, but coordination faltered as each attempt to form a defensive line was disrupted by precise human strikes that seemed to predict every movement, tearing through their ranks with terrifying efficiency. Alien officers, stunned and grasping for control, came to the grim realization that they were losing to a force that seemed not only prepared but decisively dominant. Desperation mounted as the alien leaders attempted one final push, directing their forces into a tight, consolidated formation in the hopes of creating a shielded wall that might at least slow the human advance. The plan hinged on sheer numbers and defensive concentration, the last of their strategic options. Alien ships gathered, scrambling into a dense cluster with their shields overlapping and engines straining. Commanders barked orders, rallying their troops with fading confidence, determined to salvage what remained of their once mighty fleet. But the humans reacted instantly, adjusting to this new formation with clinical precision. Instead of attempting to break through the front of the alien defensive wall, the humans adopted a flanking strategy, targeting the weaker points along the edges of the alien fleet's perimeter. Alien ships on the outskirts, now under direct fire, began to falter, crumbling under the focus strikes. Their shields, once thought impenetrable, shattered like glass under the onslaught of the human weapons. As the outer defenses fell, the human fleet pressed their advantage, sending waves of agile strike craft to exploit the gaps in the alien formation. These smaller, more maneuverable ships darted through the chaos, delivering precise hits to critical systems and leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Inside the alien ships, panic turned to full-blown chaos as system after system failed. Alarms blared, filling the corridors with a cacophony of warning klaxons and the cries of the wounded. Engineers scrambled to reroute power and erect emergency force fields, but the damage was spreading too quickly to contain. On the bridge of the alien flagship, the commander stood in stunned silence, watching helplessly as his fleet was systematically dismantled. The tactical display, once a reassuring map of their dominance, now painted a grim picture of their impending defeat. Each lost ship, each fading life sign, was another nail in the coffin of their ambitions. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the aliens had made a grave miscalculation. They had come to this system expecting an easy conquest, a chance to expand their empire and subjugate another primitive species. Instead, they found themselves facing a foe that not only matched their technology but wielded it with a skill and determination they had never encountered before. The human fleet, in contrast, moved with a unity of purpose that was as awe-inspiring as it was terrifying. Each ship seemed to anticipate the actions of the others, moving in perfect synchronization as if guided by a single, overriding intelligence. It was a level of coordination that the aliens, for all their advanced technology, had never achieved. As the last of the alien defenses crumbled, the humans pressed their final assault. Massive capital ships, bristling with weaponry, moved in to deliver the coup de grace. Their main guns, charged with the deadly pulsing of gamma rays, aimed directly at the heart of the alien formation. In a blinding flash of light, the weapons discharged, sending searing beams of destruction into the midst of the enemy fleet. The effect was immediate and devastating. Alien ships, once proud and intimidating, were reduced to molten slag in an instant. Those that survived the initial blast were left drifting, their hulls scorched and blackened, all systems dead. In a matter of moments, the mighty alien armada had been reduced to a graveyard of shattered dreams and twisted metal. Aboard the alien flagship, the commander slumped in his chair, his face a mask of disbelief and despair. He had failed, not only his mission but his entire species. In his arrogance, he had led them to ruin, underestimating an enemy that had proven far more capable than anyone could have imagined. As the last of his ships fell silent, the commander turned to his communications officer, his voice barely a whisper over the crackling of failing systems. "Send a message to High Command," he said, his words heavy with the weight of defeat. "Tell them, tell them we have lost. The humans, they are far more powerful than we ever realized. We must warn the others, before it's too late. The communications officer nodded grimly, his fingers flying over the console as he prepared to transmit the dire news. But even as the message began to broadcast, a new horror dawned on the bridge crew. The human fleet, having dispatched the last of the alien resistance, was turning its attention to the flagship. On the view screen, the massive form of a human dreadnought filled the display, its weapons already charging for a final, devastating salvo. The alien commander closed his eyes, bracing himself for the end. He had always known that death was a possibility in the line of duty, but he had never imagined it would come like this, at the hands of a species they had dismissed as primitive and weak. As the seconds ticked away, the commander's thoughts turned to his home world, to the billions of his kind who would never know the true extent of their failure here. He could only hope that they would learn from this mistake, that they would never again underestimate the resolve and ingenuity of humanity. In the end, there was no time for regrets or recriminations. In a blinding flash of light, the alien flagship vanished, consumed by the overwhelming power of the human weapons. In its place, only a spreading field of debris remained, a silent testament to the folly of their ambitions. Across the battlefield, the surviving aliens began to flee, their ships limping away from the carnage in a desperate bid for survival. Some would make it back to their own space, bearing with them the grim tale of their defeat. Others would be hunted down and destroyed, picked off by the relentless human pursuit. But for the human fleet, the battle was far from over. Even as they consolidated their victory, the commanders knew that this was only the beginning. The aliens would be back, driven by a desire for vengeance and a need to reassert their dominance. The next time, they would not underestimate the humans, and the conflict would be far more brutal and costly. As the fleet began the process of repair and rearmament, a sense of grim determination settled over the crews. They had won today, but the war was just beginning. The aliens had made the mistake of underestimating humanity once. They would not do so again. In the coming days and weeks, the news of the great victory spread like wildfire across the human worlds. The story of the alien fleet's defeat became a rallying cry, a symbol of human resilience and strength in the face of overwhelming odds. In every city, in every colony, people celebrated the heroes who had stood against the alien threat and emerged victorious. But even as they cheered and raised their glasses in triumph, a sense of unease began to grow. For the victory, as stunning as it was, had come at a great cost. Ships had been lost, lives sacrificed in the heat of battle. And the knowledge that the aliens would return, stronger and more determined than ever, weighed heavily on the minds of all. In the great halls of power, leaders and strategists gathered to plan for the future. They knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, that the war against the aliens would test humanity as never before. But they also knew that they had no choice but to fight, to stand united in the face of this existential threat. As the dust settled from the monumental battle, the human fleet set about the task of securing the system and assessing the full extent of their victory. Scouting parties were dispatched to scour the wreckage, searching for any signs of surviving alien technology that could be studied and adapted for human use. At the same time, repair crews worked tirelessly to mend the damage sustained by the human ships, ensuring that the fleet would be ready for the next inevitable encounter. Amidst the flurry of activity, the commanders of the fleet gathered to discuss their next move. They knew that the aliens, despite their crushing defeat, would not simply abandon their ambitions. Even now, the enemy would be regrouping, analyzing their mistakes, and planning for a counterstrike. The humans needed to be ready, to anticipate the aliens' next move and strike first before they could regain the initiative. To this end, the fleet's intelligence operatives were tasked with infiltrating alien communications networks, seeking any scrap of information that might give them an edge in the coming battles. Codebreakers and linguists worked around the clock, deciphering intercepted transmissions and piecing together a picture of the enemy's plans. What they found was deeply troubling. The aliens, it seemed, were not a single, unified force but a loose coalition of disparate factions, each with its own agenda and ambitions. Some sought conquest for the sake of glory and power, while others were driven by a desperate need for resources to sustain their overpopulated worlds. Still others viewed humanity as a threat to be eliminated, a potential rival that could one day challenge their dominance. But most worrying of all were the whispers of a secret weapon, a device of such immense power that it could potentially turn the tide of the war in the aliens' favor. The exact nature of this weapon remained a mystery, but the fragments of intelligence painted a grim picture of a doomsday device capable of annihilating entire worlds. Faced with this new threat, the human commanders knew that they needed to act quickly. If the aliens were allowed to complete their weapon, the consequences for humanity would be catastrophic. A plan was quickly formed to launch a preemptive strike on the aliens' main research facility, where the device was believed to be under development. To carry out this mission, a small team of elite operatives was assembled, each handpicked for their unique skills and experience. Led by Captain Elara Voss, a veteran of countless battles against the aliens, the team would infiltrate the heavily guarded facility and destroy the weapon before it could be completed. As the strike team prepared for their mission, the rest of the fleet mobilized for a massive offensive against the aliens' main staging area. The plan was to draw the enemy's attention away from the research facility, creating a diversion that would allow Captain Voss and her team to slip in undetected. The attack began with a massive bombardment from the human fleet's long-range weapons, softening up the alien defenses and sowing chaos and confusion among their ranks. As the alien ships scrambled to respond, human fighter squadrons swept in, engaging the enemy in a fierce dogfight that lit up the blackness of space. On the ground, human assault teams stormed the alien bases, fighting a desperate battle through labyrinthine corridors and fortified bunkers. The aliens fought back with all the fury of a cornered beast, but the human soldiers pressed on, driven by a grim determination to see their mission through to the end. As the battle raged on, Captain Voss and her team made their way towards the research facility, moving with silent efficiency through the shadows. They encountered little resistance at first, the aliens' attention fully focused on the main attack. But as they drew closer to their target, the team found themselves faced with increasingly fierce opposition. Alien security forces, alerted to the presence of the intruders, converged on their position, determined to protect their precious weapon at all costs. In a series of desperate firefights, Captain Voss and her team fought their way deeper into the facility, inch by bloody inch. As Captain Voss and her team fought their way deeper into the alien research facility, the true scale of the enemy's ambitions became all too clear. The corridors and chambers they passed through were filled with strange, alien technology, much of it beyond anything the humans had encountered before. It was a stark reminder of how far the aliens had advanced, and how much humanity still had to learn. At the heart of the facility, they finally found what they were looking for, the doomsday weapon that threatened the very existence of humanity. It was a monstrous device, a pulsing mass of dark energy in twisted metal that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Even to look upon it was to feel a sense of dread, a primal fear that lurked in the depths of the human psyche. Captain Voss and her team wasted no time. They set their charges, planting explosives at key structural points around the weapon. But even as they worked, the aliens were closing in, desperate to stop them before they could complete their mission. In a final, desperate stand, Captain Voss and her team fought to hold off the alien onslaught, buying precious seconds for the explosives to detonate. It was a battle that would go down in the annals of human history, a testament to the courage and sacrifice of those who had given their lives to protect their species. When the charges finally blew, the effect was cataclysmic. The doomsday weapon imploded, collapsing in on itself in a blinding flash of light and a shockwave that shook the very foundations of the facility. Captain Voss and her team were caught in the blast, their fate unknown as the structure crumbled around them. But their sacrifice was not in vain. With the destruction of the weapon, the aliens' last hope for victory was gone. The tide of the war had turned, and humanity now held the upper hand. In the aftermath of the battle, the human fleet regrouped and consolidated their gains. The alien staging area was quickly overrun, their forces scattered and demoralized in the face of the human advance. One by one, the remaining alien strongholds fell, until at last, the enemy sued for peace. The war was over, but the cost had been high. Countless lives had been lost, on both sides of the conflict. Worlds had been ravaged, entire civilizations left in ruins. But through it all, humanity had emerged stronger, united in a way that they had never been before. In the years that followed, the human fleet became a symbol of that unity, a guardian of the peace that had been so hard won. They stood watch over the galaxy, ready to defend against any threat that might arise. And though the scars of the war would never fully heal, humanity could look to the future with hope, knowing that they had faced the greatest challenge of their existence and emerged victorious. As for Captain Vega and her team, their fate remained a mystery. Some said that they had perished in the blast, their bodies lost amidst the rubble of the alien facility. Others claimed that they had survived, and were even now out there somewhere, watching over humanity from the shadows. Whispers spoke of their return in humanity's darkest hour, ready to stand once more in defense of their species. But as the years turned to decades, and the decades to centuries, the truth of their fate faded into legend. The Great War with the aliens passed into history, a story told to children as a reminder of the price of victory, and the courage of those who had fought and died to secure humanity's future. Generations came and went, and the human fleet remained a constant presence, a guardian of the peace that had been bought with so much blood. They patrolled the stars, ever watchful for signs of a new threat, ready to meet it with the same determination and skill that had seen them through their darkest hour. And so it was that when the aliens returned, centuries later, they found a very different humanity waiting for them. Gone was the primitive, disunited species they had once sought to conquer. In its place stood a galactic power, united and strong, with a fleet that was the envy of the cosmos. The aliens, for their part, had not forgotten their humiliating defeat. In the centuries since the war, they had rebuilt their strength, honing their technology and their tactics in preparation for the day when they would have their revenge. But as they looked upon the might of the human fleet, they realized that they had underestimated their old enemy once again. The Second War was a very different conflict from the first. Where once the aliens had sought to conquer, now they fought simply to survive. The humans, for their part, showed no mercy, determined to end the threat once and for all. The battles were brutal and bloody, fought across the length and breadth of the galaxy. But in the end, the outcome was never in doubt. The aliens, for all their advances, were no match for the skill and determination of the human fleet. In the final battle, it was the humans who emerged victorious once more. The alien fleet was shattered, their last strongholds reduced to rubble. And as the smoke cleared, the humans stood tall, the undisputed masters of the galaxy. The Great War was over, but the legend of the human fleet would live on. They had faced the greatest challenges the cosmos could throw at them, and they had emerged stronger for it. They had shown the galaxy the true meaning of courage and sacrifice, and in doing so, they had secured humanity's place among the stars. And though the names of Captain Vega and her team might have faded from memory, their legacy endured. For as long as the human fleet stood watch over the galaxy, their spirit would live on, a shining beacon of hope and unity in a universe that was all too often dark and divided. In the end, that was perhaps the greatest victory of all. Not the battles won or the enemies vanquished, but the knowledge that humanity had stood together in the face of adversity, and had emerged all the stronger for it. It was a lesson that would guide them through the centuries to come, a reminder that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one, united in purpose and resolve. And so the story of the human fleet became a legend, passed down from generation to generation. A tale of courage and sacrifice, of unity and hope. A reminder of what humanity was capable of when they stood together, and a promise of the bright future that lay ahead. For in the end, the true legacy of the Great War was not the battles fought or the lives lost, but the spirit of humanity itself. The unbreakable will, the indomitable courage, and the unshakable unity that had seen them through their darkest hour, and that would guide them through all the challenges yet to come. It was a legacy that would endure long after the last ship had fallen silent, and the last soldier had laid down their arms. A legacy that would forever be remembered as the defining moment of humanity's ascent to the stars.